sorry. I didn't see you there. You know how it is to get caught up in a read that is just to die for. Necronomicon. So hypnotizing. Now, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 1 from the Depths Goth Book Club edition. It'll be a lot of fun discussing some enthralling, macabre, deliciously dark reads with you all. I'm a huge horror movie fan, as you guys all should know, but my first love is just stories overall, and I've been a huge bibliophile since I was a kid, and that has only grown with age. And of course, I have a certain infatuation with dark, intriguing, fierce reads. So for this series, it'll be focusing, it could be horror, could be serial killer, supernatural, anything with just like a dark gothic edge to it. But we will veer more towards the sides of horror rather than fantasy, although I'm a big dark fantasy fan, so we might sprinkle a little of that in there too. So for my first recommendation, I'd like to highlight a gothic series that starts off in Victorian London in 1888. The first book is called Stalking Jack the Ripper, and it's written by Carrie Maniscalco. And this book came out in 2016. So there is a series of 4 books in the series, and each one pretty much came out within about a year of each other. So this is a series, wrapped up about, roughly 5 years ago or so. But yeah, I recently checked it out, and there was just a lot to love about it that I think is worth highlighting. So it focuses on a young girl who has a certain fascination with the dead, but more of any dark impulses. It's really scientific curiosity, but I think she just kind of takes the taboo out of it, and there is a certain, macabre curiosity that kind of speaks to her and is very interesting and sort of intoxicating to view through her eyes. But the bigger element is it's a murder mystery, and this is during the time of the Jack the Ripper murders. And her and initial sort of antagonist competition student or co-student of hers, they're the ones that kind of end up teaming up together and discovering what's the truth behind the murders. And from there, the series kind of builds and flourishes. And there's a lot of great things about, our female lead, that she is very intelligent and capable and fierce. She has incredible instincts that she isn't afraid to go off of. She is daring and has a huge heart too. She fights for and puts herself at great risk to try to put a stop to murder and hysteria and fear. And she works with the male lead. He's a really great character too. There is definitely a romance that builds between them, which is great. I love romance in my books, sort of the dark lore, but as long as it's not taking the wheel, it's not pushing the story and everything to the back burner, which it really doesn't. It really, Thomas is very, he has his snark and his witty, competitive remarks, but very incredibly respectful and supportive in a time where women weren't really treated that way, period. And everything is always, oh, I support your choice, you're your own person. So there's something really refreshing and loving and respectful about their relationship, but there's still this kind of fun, zippy banter along this this dark, enticing, horrifying, suspenseful adventure that they're on. So great characters, it's a lot of fun, and one of my favorite things about this series is that it takes different historical hauntings or murderers or men made to be monsters, and it dives in and has a great like exploratory nature, and it has a certain amount of creative license of like what could have happened and what could be behind these things, and also I think plays with what it might have been like living in that time with these fears, and why people cling to these fears and sometimes mythology and supernatural things when they don't understand horrors in the world around them. So that leads me to where the series goes from the Ripper murders. The second book is called Haunting Prince Dracula, which was probably my favorite. And each book, what is really cool is it's around the same time period, but each one takes place in a very different setting. So the first one takes place in London. Then the second one, our main female hero, who's Emily Rose Wadsworth is her name. So she's been accepted to a forensic school to try to further her ambitions and insight in the medical community. And where does this school take place? Well, of course, Vlad the Impaler's castle in Romania. What better place for a school? So it is a lot of fun. I'm also a massive vampire fan. So some of the lore that they go into here, because again, it's another series of murders that seems strikingly close to Vlad the Impaler or Dracula, you know, the monster that that was given infamy through the books, as well as, you know, the real life counterparts of the horrors that were spoken about. So it's kind of like a fun mix of murders taking place that are akin to both of those. But there's a lot of fun like questioning, like, could this possibly be a real vampire running rampant? Could it be like zealots who are mirroring and trying to bring it to life, like an occultish, you know, fascination? Or is it just regular people who are using that fear and hysteria and the bloody history of this place and taking advantage of that to try to hide in plain sight, so to speak? So it dives into a lot of like interesting vampire mythology too, and like how these myths came to be. So that one's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one the most. And then the third one is Escaping from Houdini, which is like a Cirque de Whimsy of this show happening across the Atlantic. So again, switches up very different scenery and type of things going on, and then there's a certain horror in that one that they're stuck on the ship, and so the horror that comes out there's a added entrapping element to it. And then lastly, Capturing the Devil takes place in Chicago. And that one kind of mirrors the Devil in the White City, being, you know, trying to uncover the man and the madness and the destruction of H.H. Holmes. So I really liked the creativity of the series and how it was a mixture of taking real life horrors and adding like the possibility of a supernatural element of it seeming so powerful and sort of otherworldly, and again having very strong, likable fears characters that we could follow as they uncover this mystery and fight for the truth. But then it also had a really just interesting element of kind of looking into how these myths and fears and, you know, supernatural lore and things along those lines, you know, like how that gets formed. So it was an interesting mix of, you know, kind of being taken away into this gothic macabre murder mystery world that's akin to our world, and also, you know, kind of built up this mystery, but then also brought it back to a very human element and those human horrors that are capable, but also how it's within all of us to recognize and fight and enlighten and stand against that. So that's my recommendation. Again, the setting is incredible. It almost, again, it doesn't have quite the monsters or fictional character element. It's more like real life characters, but it almost had an aspect that reminded me of like the real life historical dark version of like Penny Dreadful, the show, just instead of Frankenstein and you know, other literary gothic characters, it dives into iconic murderers and kind of plays with different settings and times and different mindsets with a lot of really strong, intriguing elements. It is considered a young adult novel. I know some people, that's not their thing. It didn't read as very young, you know, like she's, again, this is Victorian times, and it's a woman who's kind of taking a stand and going against the path and societal expectations and diving into some very treacherous situations of known mass murders and not being afraid to put herself in those situations. So there is a certain maturity and gut that's there. And again, dealing with some dark, very heavy things. So just FYI, it is considered YA gothic murder mystery, essentially. But I think, you know, even if you tend to read more adult fiction strictly, like I think it'll still read very well and be relatable and enthralling to you. But that is a little taste of what to expect there. Okay, so now I would like to give you a book recommendation. So this is one that will be our very first pick of Goth Book Club. So let's all read it together, but I'm gonna give you a little taste first. So here I have Slasher Girl by Reyna Young. Now, Reyna Young is a horror filmmaker and writer. She's really has a wide depth of material in the genre that she's dug into. She's also a horror host, so what can't she do? She has a very genuine passion for the genre, and she really excels at everything from, you know, tackling traumatic, psychological, very human, evasive horrors to just having fun with it and, you know, having, you know, cheesy, horror, macabre, over the top, just thriving and having fun within the genre. So she really, you know, she can dive deep and go into those more dark, uncomfortable things. And a lot of her material also comes from a place of just loving the genre and celebrating it. So, and that, I think that comes through a lot in her novel, Slasher Girl. It is a pretty quick read, which I always love when I can just like dive into a book and just let it consume it all and go all the way with it in one sitting. And you know, if you have the afternoon or the day, I think that's definitely doable with this. It's about 145 pages total. So I'm gonna give you a quick little synopsis, read through, and leave you with a few comments. Okay, so from Reyna Young. Avid lovers of horror films and general geeky high school rejects, Samantha and her friends are about to graduate high school. But by then, they all had grown sick and tired of how they'd been relentlessly bullied over those high school years by elite bubblegum popping cheerleaders and so-called football heroes. On one fateful night, while sneaking into a party, Samantha finds herself the victim of a brutal rape. While victims of the same fate and by the same hands had kept silent for months, she could not contain her rage and vowed vengeance. And what sweet vengeance it would be if she could only avoid the suspicions of both the law, her closest friends, and the entire school and community as she brandishes a butcher knife and unleashes a wild bloodbath throughout the town and across these pages. So I've gotten a little taste of it myself, and there's a lot. Definitely, if I had to sum it up and give you a comparison, I would call it Scream meets I Spit on Your Grave. Obviously, with dealing with bullying and rape, there's some very heavy, disturbing stuff there, and without telling you too much, it gives you a little bit of an idea of darkness and that initial seed that's planted and how it can just explode, that even the best, toughest person can only deal with so much until it all implodes. So there's a lot of fun horror movie references among that dark, bleak, you know, disturbing type of situation that no one should ever have to endure, but sadly is all too common in our world. So Reyna throws in, you know, some fun horror-loving elements too. There's a lot of movie references, a lot of instances where also horror films are this girl's solace, where she feels understood and at peace, and it can almost quell her rage to an extent, but also there is an element where she just has to fight and get retribution for the horrors that have been happening, not letting herself be silenced anymore. So, Slasher Girl, check it out. You can get it. Look through Reyna's website, and we'll leave the link for where you can get the book. So yeah, definitely check it out, and let's talk about it on our next episode of Goth Book Club. All right, guys. Enjoy your macabre, thrilling reads, and we'll talk soon. Bye.